I want to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Hart. I'm a 17-year veteran education educator, and I've worked in various formats in administration and in the classroom, taught math departmentalized. And you know, there's every once in a while you come across someone who is a master of their craft and they inspire you, and the way that they're looking at things, at data specifically, really piques your interest, and you start wanting to share. So Pam and I met when we were working at a district level together, and I started to see a master plan unfold that would really be helpful to other people. And so I started sharing that with other administrators. They started talking to Pam, and I thought, my goodness, we just need to share this with everyone. So that's how this webinar, this workshop came to be. I want to tell you a little bit about Pam. Pam worked for 31 and a half years and retired. 30 days later, she's back, and she's working part-time with Carroll County Schools, but also she supervises student teachers at the University of West Georgia. She is a rock star. She's been not only has her master's in mathematics, but she also has received awards like being a star teacher and with Teachers That Make a Difference. And so this is her passion. And you're going to see that as she begins to talk. And remember, any questions, please put them in the question section. I'm going to turn it over to Pam and let her share with us data information that will be relevant to you in your districts that you can package and take up. And we will send you information about this at the end. You don't have to do anything. We're just going to send it straight to your inbox so that you can have some of the resources she talks about. So with nothing else holding us back, Pam, share with us your magic. We can't wait.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and to be representing Carroll County Schools and to talk about what we're doing. This title is pretty much describes exactly what we do. We're all about empowering our teachers and investing in our teachers and our students and working with our data. So let's get started and meet our team. This is our creative power behind what we do in the elementary division, which is what the area that I work in. My director is Jennifer Shirley. She's director of elementary. She's also our director of accountability. Myself and Stacy Wright, we're both intervention specialists who work under Jennifer, and we go out to schools. We work with principals and teachers, and that's what we do. I actually do the math and social studies, and Stacy does ELA and science. And Jennifer is the real data bulldog of all of us. She is the brains behind all of our data and how we do it. So here in Carroll County Schools, we're in the state of Georgia, for those of you who don't know, and we're about 35 miles west of Atlanta. We're kind of a medium-sized system. We have 15,000 students with 3,000 teachers. We are a Title I district. Our free and reduced rates are a little bit higher than this. We just got them. They're range from 45% to 80%. In Carroll County Schools, we are all about positively changing lives, and we're committed to that. And this is our tagline. This is our focus. And in that mind, everything we do is with that mindset to positively change lives of our children and our teachers and all of our stakeholders. We have a 95% graduation rate. Last year, we were so excited about this. This is our third consecutive year with greater than 90% graduation rate. This is something we have worked on, and we put a lot of time into it, and as obviously, as you can see, but it's more about just graduation rate. It's about everything that goes in behind it, and that is the investment we have in all of our students. And we do that from the beginning, from when they enter at pre-K all the way through their senior year. We have an initiative of Future Focused, and we provide opportunities at every level for students to see that future. We have 2 college and career academies. We're the only system in our state that has 2. And we want to emphasize and make sure that when our students leave us, they're either enrolled, employed, enlisted, and engaged. We began our STEM journey a few years ago, and this is a real game changer. We have 19 schools that are district, national, or internationally STEM certified schools. And that 21st century STEM programming and the way that you have to teach your STEM was a big game changer for us. Our district SGP, student growth percentiles for elementary, are, as you see, all in the 70s and one in the at 66. This puts us all at exceeding growth for our levels. So this is something we're very proud of, and this is something that that we share with everyone, and we, all of our kids know what their growth is, and all of our teachers do. So this is we're very transparent with what we do. So let's talk about how we look at data in Carroll County. We break it down into 4 levels, and we're going to talk about all 4 levels. The first 3 you see here is at the district level, and at the school level, teacher level, and student is the 4th one. We use a variety of ways to look at data and a variety of methods. But within all of those, we look at our P&D, proficient and distinguished targets. We emphasize and look at data over time. We look at our SGPs, and we focus on growth. And at the district level, we look at our tiers. At the school level, we look at data by the individual teacher level, the teacher SGP, and then we focus on our subgroup data, and we break it down by all of our subgroups that are specific to each school. In Carroll County, we have all students, Black students, white students, Hispanic students, ELL, special ed, and our largest is economically disadvantaged. At the teacher level, we break it down even further, and we look at individual student progress. We look at the teacher SGP with them, as well as the student SGP, and then we focus on the mastery of domains and standards. So this is a snapshot of what our data might look like as we are looking at it. Since we didn't have a milestone test last year, we actually have to go back to the milestones in 2019. And that's that first column you see, and that is the proficient and developing on the milestones that year. And so this year, we look at our data at the beginning of the year, after the first 9 weeks, which is typically in October, the second 9 weeks, which is in December, and then the third 9 weeks, which is in March. We just finished taking this. And we focus and we track those students at the proficient and developing, and we're trying to see, are we making that benchmark? Red means we're below, yellow means we're right at, and green means that we are exceeding the benchmark. This being a COVID year, as all of you know, our data doesn't look exactly like we had hoped that it would look, but it's still, we're still tracking. Then we look at data over time. We actually go back as far as we can and begin looking. We went back 3 years here, but as far as we begin taking this data, and we look at this data horizontally and vertically, so we can track cohorts to see, are these students growing? And an example of this, if you look in school 1, the second grade at 62%, what did they look like in December? In their 3rd grade year, they were at 55%, and as a 4th grade in December, they were at 66%. So we track the cohorts, but yet we also compare teaching level horizontally as well. These are our performance bands, 1 being beginning, 2 being developing, 3 proficient, and 4 is distinguished. And we track where we are falling in those performance bands. And a purple means that this is where they have placed, a green means they've gone up a band, and a red means they've gone back a band. Our emphasis is not to live in what we call 2 lands. So we focus on getting kids to proficient and distinguished. Growth is something that we look at every student, at the grade level, and by teacher groups. And we are actually looking for 1 year or more of growth. we have found throughout all of the data that we use that if we get more than a year's growth, then we're going to get to that point of progress, which is the largest bucket of accountability on our AYP, which is the CCRPI in the state of Georgia. And thankfully, we are exempt from that this year. So, but we can't let down, and we haven't let down one moment during this time of COVID. We are constantly making sure that we are where we are and where we need to be, and we're still focusing on that year's growth or more every day. So, what do we use? We use STAR. We've been using STAR for 7 years now. We use the STAR based upon the Georgia predictor, Georgia milestone predictor in STAR. It's called the state level, and we find this to be very much aligned with our Georgia milestones. And we use that for our data and our benchmarks in August, first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, third 9 weeks, and our first and second grade do STAR in May as well to finish out their benchmark. And then we do eliminate. Eliminate is what we do to do all of our common assessments. We give common assessments in Carroll County. Those are developed by our teacher teams. And we pull the teachers with the highest test scores, and we begin talking to those teachers and finding out what they did. And then we also have them on our common assessment teams. And you see that donut, the kids call it the donut, and teachers display this in their classroom. And it's all about making that donut more green than it is. And we've been using Eliminate for 8 years. Last year, so this will be the second year we're using Dreambox, we added Dreambox to this mix, and we look at Dreambox daily to see how many lessons a student is doing, what the standards look like, and we use this for acceleration and remediation as part of our plan to help bring up those two areas. Now at the teacher level, we've started something that has just been wonderful that that we're going to make sure we're very consistent and pervasive with next year. We do what we call data sorts, and at that very first testing in August, we write the names of the kids on the card and whatever their score might be. We use grade equivalents here because kids understand grade equivalents a little bit better. So we use grade equivalents on here, and kids who score in beginning get a red card or pink card. Kids who score in developing get a yellow, and kids who score in proficient get a blue and distinguish a green. This particular data you see here is December data. And what we do is we lay out all the cards based on where they began the year, and then we check the data and we move those cards. And teachers love this because they can actually see the kids moving, and they can actually, visually move that child. We write down the score, and it's so exciting to see them and be a part of this with the teachers as they're in there in our collaborative planning, and we're moving these cards and we're seeing how kids are growing. So that's pretty exciting. We do a DNA sheet, every teacher does, and all of those kids are written on this DNA sheet with what we're going to do to help move them in their bands and help them gain better achievement. But there's something about these cards that just really kind of sinks home with teachers. I mean, it's really much more personal because our kids are a name and they're not a number. In some instances, you'll see that there's little pictures of the kids on it because, it's all about them. It's all about the children. Okay, so that's all the data that we look at and we have, but data's great and it's great to have, but it's not so great if you're not doing anything with it. So in our journey to increase our student achievement and our growth, and I do say journey because this has taken time over years to get us to where we kind of are. We will never be happy. We will continue, we will constantly push. But in that, we had to start thinking, what can we do to help teachers move students? And some of the first things we did, we began having afternoon teacher meetings, and we did this by grade level and content. So all of our third grade teachers met together, and it was after school, and then our fourth grade teachers would meet, and our fifth grade teachers would meet, and we met separately, so we had just that time with that grade level and content area. We had to do it after school because we just didn't have the money to pay for subs or anything like that, so we had to think outside the box to think about how can we do this when we do have limited funds. And so the afternoon teacher meetings, at first, when we first started them, teachers were a little apprehensive. They didn't want to share as much. But then as we really dove in there, and we dove in there with them, the three that I introduced our team did. And we first, when we first got there, we broke down the standards with them, and we would take standard by standard, and we would talk about what makes this work, what's keeping this from getting to where we need to be, what do we have that's holding us back, what are those barriers, and let's see if we can remove those. My cohort Stacy and I, we went out and spoke to those highest performing teachers. I told you that before, but we also looked to see, are they doing something different that is beyond the scope that we're seeing in other schools. And one of the things that came out in these teacher afternoon meetings and in the discussions that we had was the use of Eureka Math. And so we began using Eureka Math 6 years ago, sometime during then, and we slowly brought it in, and that came from the teacher meetings. So after we kind of had our standards broken down, and we had a system curriculum that we were going to use to do and teach the standards that we felt was rigorous, and also gave us kind of structure, because we have not had textbooks in almost 15 years. So we needed some type of structure for the teachers as well as the students. And so that was the beginning of that. From there, we began developing a plan for what true collaborative planning is, and what does that look like to get student achievement and to move students. So we taught how to collaboratively plan, and we go out and we collaboratively plan with our teachers and our grade levels. And so that was one of the next hurdles we did. And then we went back to the standards, and we said, are we meeting this? Now that we've done this, is this enough for that standard? Or is there a certain standard that we can hit and go, and is there something we can put in a spiral review? Spiral reviews came out of the teacher meetings, and spiral reviews are a non-negotiable for us. We have those in every math classroom. Collaborative planning became a non-negotiable. Eureka Math became a non-negotiable, breaking down those standards. So you see, we began doing this, and this was with the teachers. It was not a decision made at an upper level and then just spread out. This was happening in these teacher meetings. And so once we had that going on, we were like, okay, we need something else. We're looking for something on a way that we know we can get the students more engaged. So then we went to Instructional Strategies, and we had a full year of afternoon teacher meetings that we focused on explicit teaching and using instructional strategies to engage students. They're all best practices. We Googled things, we researched, and we found things. Teachers brought in things, teachers shared things with us. And so we kind of began to focus on that piece of, okay, now we have standards, we have what we're going to use, now we have a way that we're going to teach it. And so we came about with that. And in the process of all this, Jennifer is working with administrators on making sure that our schedules are not a barrier to teaching math. So we have 90 minutes of math and 90 minutes of ELA, but that was a game. That's also a game changer for us because we now have more time to go more in depth, to work with our groups, to make sure that kids are getting what they need in time in order to practice. And we all know you have to practice math. So that 90 minutes has been a wonderful thing, but it wasn't enough. So we went to an extended learning time as well. And extended learning time is a 40 to 45 minute time at the very beginning of the day. Every one of our elementary schools start off with an extended learning time. They all have their great names for it, whether it's power time, wildcat time, tiger time, whatever they do to make it their own. That is in the schools. But in this extended learning time, we have very high expectations on what we expect to come out of that. And that is we are working on skills in math and in ELA. This is where we do Dreambox, and I'll come back and share that a little bit more on what we do at Dreambox there. But this is also where we teach phonics, so to our K2. So we have that extended learning time in addition to our class times. So with that time, and then we began to look at our EIP schedules. Not our special ed schedules. We do everything we can to make sure that we do get the best that we can for our special ed schedules and make sure they work. But on our EIP schedules, you know, are we using that and using the funds the way that is most beneficial to the students? And so Jennifer spent a lot of times with the administrators on making sure that we do that. And we are using a little bit of flexibility with EIP right now, that we're doing a reduced class size model to help kind of bring our numbers down, which is also helping. So we have our strategies, we have our standards, and then we began to look at a very strategic, flexible grouping. When we group students, they're not there all the time. We group them based on their needs. So it does become a little bit of individualized learning here, because we look at a child to see what their needs are, where we can provide support, where we can kind of fill some gaps. And that's how we group students. They're not rigid by any means, and they are constantly moving. We have tutoring also. Many of the teachers dedicate their time after school on their own and tutor, but also graciously our superintendent provided a tutor in some of our buildings that were struggling. And we made sure, along with administrators and the teachers really helped with us to make sure that whatever that tutor's doing is for the betterment of the child, to make sure they're getting the biggest bang for the buck for that child, because we want to, it all goes back to them and about the student success. So we have all of this wonderful stuff, and we've been working on it very hard, but nothing is ever going to happen unless something is monitored. And so then we began the monitoring process. We have all these things in place, but is it truly happening? And so we put in something to monitor. We went through advanced ed certification a few years ago for the district level, and recertification at the district level. And they had a observation tool called the Elliott. And the Elliott really works well with STEM-based certification. It works well with, of course, the advanced ed, but the Elliott tool does a great job of focusing on what's happening with the students. So when you go in to observe using that tool, you're not just focusing on the teacher, you're focusing on what's happening in that entire classroom. And in this particular monitoring tool, we stop and we ask kids, what are you doing? And how do you know that you're getting it right? How do you know you're doing well in something? Can you tell me about your data? And our kids can, because we focus on that and we work with our children on that. So that was part of our journey. It's been quite a long journey. But when we added Dreambox last year, we thought about it, and we wanted it to be something that truly worked on the acceleration and remediation part. So we call it the Carroll County way. We use it to support instruction, and we use it in 3 different ways. Students work on their individualized Dreambox pathway in the extended learning time. This helps fill gaps. This helps the kids work on the areas that they need most. The teachers who are in that extended learning time for Dreambox, they look for the triangles. They look to see what might be holding a child back. They look to see and kind of help with those skills and help the kids along with the platform. That is done during extended learning times and during math centers. As we began this school year, as I'm sure most of you found that you had a lot of gaps as they came back from shelter in place. And this was something that we knew we had to work on. So we looked at Dreambox to help support our gap standards. And one of the ways that we did this is that we looked at the previous grade level and looked at those skills that are prerequisites for the upcoming content. And a couple of weeks before, we would assign that gap standard to the child or the children so that they would be working on that and they would have a little bit of something to assimilate any new knowledge with. A perfect example of this happened at third grade, the beginning of third grade. Third grade teaches elapsed time. In second grade, we learned to tell time to the minute and the 5 minutes. And that was at the end of the year. And yes, our teachers did work hard to virtually teach. You know, that was thrown at every teacher when we sheltered in place, and you have to quickly come up with how you're doing this and to do the virtual. And they did their best. But, you know, there's nothing like the teacher being in the classroom with a child. And so this was a gap for us. The kids came in not being able to adequately, we felt, tell time. So we assigned those standards in Dreambox, and we let the kids work on those during their extended learning time and in times in their centers in the classroom. We also use the Eureka lessons, which are great, by the way, if any of you are use Eureka. The lessons in Dreambox are wonderful. They are rigorous, just like the work in Eureka. And we only use Eureka to support our content that's currently being taught in the classroom. And I also ask that only happen during the math classroom that we work on Eureka, because they are quite difficult. And because we have some gaps from last year, I don't want the kids to be frustrated, nor the parents. Parents have loved Dreambox. It was one of the easier platforms they felt when we had to start virtual learning. And so I want to keep that going. So we only do the Eureka lessons with the teacher. So when we focus on standards, we take this page, and this is a first grade page, which doesn't actually take the milestones, the GMAS, but in our 3-5 right now, we do a 10-week plan beginning in February, because we kind of have a focus. We start the year strong, then we work our plan, and now we're in the finish strong phase. So we want to make sure that when we finish strong, that we have our kids ready to move on to the next grade level. It's not just about a test. It's about having those children equipped to be able to do math and to be able to progress, because they're going to have a long journey in math, and we want to make sure there aren't any gaps. So right now in those 10-week plans, we're kind of filling in some gaps, and we're kind of looking at the grades before. If there's something that child is missing, then we're kind of assigning those gaps. And we have kind of an exciting program that I'm going to talk to you about in just a second on that. For Dreambox, I send out a weekly report and a monthly report to the administrators. And what I'm looking for here that I share with the principals: are we doing 5 or more lessons a week? Are we getting 10% growth every 30 days? On the Predictive Insights, which is a monthly report, how many students do we have on track? How many students do we have potentially on track? Are we within that realm of, are we using it, and are we growing in there? And then also look at the teacher dashboard. was kind of curious as I was looking at our data, and as the February predictive insights came out, I looked at, I'm so excited now the March is here. March should be coming in. I'm so excited I can look at March, but I looked at the February predictive insights, and then I looked at the STAR proficient and developing, proficient and distinguished, sorry, at a certain school, and kind of looked to see, are they aligning? So I took that school's cards and I laid them out just like I was doing the picture you saw earlier on the beginning, developing, proficient, distinguished. This time I laid them out to on track, potentially on track, not on track, and then not enough usage and insufficient usage. And they aligned really well. So that is exciting to me and to all of us that work with this, that we want some alignment. Yes, we have a 6-point difference here, but that's statistically because for the Predictive Insights looks at a 6-week period of time, STAR is a 1-day snapshot, but it kind of lets me see some alignment there. I have this wonderful video, which I'm so sorry, I want to play, but it's not working real well for you all, so you can't see it, but I'm going to tell you what this is. This is Miss Hodges, and she is working with one of her students in 3rd grade, and we set goals, and this is that 4th prong of students knowing their data. So we set goals on everything that we do with the kids, and you see they are looking at his data. And in this particular video, Miss Hodges starts off by asking him, did he meet his goal? And he walks through each one of his data points, including the new one that he just took. Has he met his goal? And they talk about, and he did meet his goal. He was at a 4.4. And this is where grade equivalence kind of really helps with students. Rather than using a standard score, because they understand 4th grade, 4th month. And so that's what his March score was. And he actually helps with Miss Hodges' help. They actually set a goal for May on what it will look like in May. And then they talk about what he needs to do to reach that goal, and they talk about his Dreambox and what he's working in Dreambox. So it's a great video, and I think they're sharing this with you all, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, so is all this working? All this work? Well, we feel it is, because we have 35 title awards for highest performance and highest growth. And these 35 have been over the last 10 years we've been working on this. We have 5 GOSO awards in the past 7 years for silver, gold, and platinum for the highest absolute performance and highest gains for improvement. So yeah, I think it's working for us. And we want more. We will continue to want more. Our kids strive for it, and our teachers strive for it. But we also have this other thing that's kind of happened in the last 2 years, and which has been really exciting. Our system has been voted the best place to work by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the Times-Georgian, which is a local newspaper. So in both places, and so this is pretty exciting to know that we are considered the best place to work, which I would agree we are. Okay, so we have the Future Focused Initiative. As this year, we also, for the past couple of years, along with Future Focus, we've been doing social emotional awareness as a focus. And we have gone through Capturing Kids' Hearts, which is a wonderful program. And we developed systems within our schools for this. But we feel that within this, we also need to look at our teachers, and we need to recognize our teachers for the things that they do and share that recognition. And we celebrate student success. We're all about making sure that our students know that we are so proud of them and everything they do. So how do we do that? We use our data with our students. This particular 2nd grade class, in a 30-day average growth, they were at 21.1%. And they did 12.5 lessons per week. And how they did that is they decided to start filling in their circles by Let's Go Green. And so this is kind of caught on, and in our first and second grade classrooms, we are looking to go green. The kids know their bubbles. They see their bubbles. They see, oh, I've got all my bubbles filled in at this grade level. Now I'm working on this. And we call it, the kids call it fill in their bubble. I got my green bubble today. And so we have gone green. We even for the month of March, we were, of course, doing March Madness by going green, but it is not unusual to have a child stop you in the hall and say, hey, I went green today. So that's exciting. So in our March Madness, as I said, we celebrate our children. And so this is an example of one classroom who did the shamrocks, and the kids come up and they put something on when they got their standard. This was at the beginning of the month. This board now looks very much covered up with green dots, and that's exciting. And green candy goes out, so that if you get that green bubble, then you also get green candy, and that's a motivator. We also have schools that post things in the hall. This was again at the beginning of March when I first started putting this together. And they list the kids' names. These are hanging in the hallway. The other one is a screenshot from a classroom that every day she puts her shout outs up of who's done what in her class. This is a weekly goal for these particular students. Not every child in this classroom has this goal, but this is the goal for these children, and they crush their goals. If they crush their goals, then she recognizes all of them. Again, more recognitions. The one that you're seeing on the right, the Dreambox Dream Teams. I wish I had an updated picture of this, but this is something an administrator, two administrators, a principal and assistant principal, put together because they wanted the kids to come out and they wanted to see, are we growing? And they went ahead and put Lexia and Dreambox, because we use both of those programs, one for reading and ELA, and one for, and of course Dreambox for math. And it's filled up much more than this, but it's all about the kids coming out and seeing that they are recognized and that we see it. Now, it breaks my heart you can't see this one, because these two are my favorite, and they are telling you in this video what happens when they earn their tickets. And they get to spend their tickets in the school store. So I certainly hope you get to see this one, because they're both cute as they can be. And well, by the way, the kids did this. The kids filmed this for me and sent it to me, and so it's pretty cool. And if you've not used Flipgrid, that's a great way to let your kids film and show what they're doing and how they're doing things. Another way that we show growth, this is actually something a principal puts up weekly as she does her announcements, and she looks for growth, and she cheers and shouts out to the teams that are growing. And as I said, we recognize our teachers. We have teacher awards that we do for every level of performance of everything that we do, from common assessments to STAR to whatever, and we recognize our top 4 performers. We at the district level do these, and we take them out, give them to the administrators, and these are placed outside the door. And it's been just awesome to see the teachers who are excited, that they got the Rock Star Award, and we do call that, they are our rock stars. And the kids are excited to see that their classroom got a rock star, and it's just very important to us that we celebrate our people and all of our stakeholders. So this has been something really exciting that we've added in. Well, I've talked a lot, and it's certainly not what I'm used to, because I'm used to being very interactive with people and for us to do something. But since I couldn't do that, I did want to stick this in here, and this is a really neat free website. It's called futureme.com. And when you go into futureme.com, you actually compose yourself an email. So I ask that if you see something you like, or that you have an idea that came to you, that you go to futureme.com, you type it up into an email, you decide when you want to send it to yourself. It will send it a year from now. It will send it 4 months from now. So if you saw something you really, really liked, but I know that the school year is winding down, and since we have to do testing, everybody's really busy with that you want to make sure you remember it come July and August, then you just set it for July and August and you get an email reminding you, hey, you had these thoughts. And it is free. And so it's just a lot of fun. We do it with the kids too, have you grown, and they get to email themselves, and at the end of the year they can see different goals that are set. So that's us in Carroll County. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dreambox.
Thank you, Pam. I really appreciate that. I wanted to remind you guys that Pam is going to come back and answer questions. So any questions that you have, please put them under the question tab in your GoWebinar toolbar really quickly. And I have the pleasure of introducing David Woods to you. David is one of my favorite people at Dreambox. I've known him for a while. He just is the most fantastic curriculum designer you could ever meet. He is the senior curriculum designer over curriculum and reporting. He not only is a curriculum designer, but he taught mathematics in elementary, middle, and high school. So we get major respect for him. And so he's going to just kind of give you Dreambox in a nutshell in about 2 minutes, but hang on because we're coming back for Q&A and I see some great questions already, and David's going to help answer some of those too. So take it away, David.
Thank you, Jennifer, and great presentation, Pam. What tremendous things you're doing in that district for all those kids and educators. So real quick, again, I have taught for about 10 years across the grade levels. I always love to give a shout out to K-2 teachers. That was not my age group. Middle school is my age group. I could take the attitudes every day, all day, something unique with middle school students. Whereas K-2, something about being 6'5", 275, generally with this nice deep voice, sometimes didn't always, there was a lot of crying from mainly me, not the student, from me trying to work with them. The Dreambox, online adaptive K-8 digital math curriculum. We are in all 50 states, Canada and Mexico. We have over 5 million students, hundreds of thousands of teachers. And basically, if I were to describe Dreambox in a nutshell, our goal, our pedagogical principle is that the goal of teaching is not to put a thought in a student's mind. The goal of teaching is to empower the student's mind to generate thought. And with that, would you go to the next slide, please? And if you think about how can we empower the student to generate thought, well, it comes from intentional lesson design. These are the things that you do every day in your classroom. How do we design a learning experience that meets the needs of all students? And so we design our lessons to be super adaptive. We want to understand, we put emphasis on how the student answers the question or the problem or task that we put in front of them. One of the litmus tests that I like to apply to digital software or digital curriculums is if you've heard of something like photo math or Wolfram Alpha, basically if our aspiration is that the tasks we put in front of students, photo math couldn't solve, because we need the kids to interact with the manipulatives. So when we have kids working with 10 frames, working on 10 structure, we're measuring, when we ask them to build 9, if they move 1 counter at a time. We are assessing that as one-to-one correspondence, so that if Pam builds 9 by moving 10 counters over and removing 1, whereas I build 9 by moving 1 at a time, we analyze, assess, and adapt based on how the student answers the question. And then we change the task on them. These are the types of insights that we want to provide to the educator. It's the thing that you want to do for all 28 students in your classroom. But there's not 28 yous to observe every student when they're working with that 10 frame. And so our reporting, our data is powered by evidence of students, right? What is the student showing us? Could you go to the next slide, please? So if you keep that pedagogical principle in mind, and as Pam talked about Dreambox Predictive Insights, what we want to do is provide you the latest, greatest information. Good reporting is accurate. Great reporting is actionable. It changes the outcomes of the models. By us providing that rolling 6-week window of insights into what's the latest, greatest information about your students, you are empowered as a district and as an educator to make changes on the outcomes. So by seeing X% of students that have not been playing in Dreambox, you might shift resource allocations, more Chromebooks, more iPads in second grade or in this other school. You might target professional development for a lagging school or grade level that may not quite be on board with trying to implement something like this. Again, good data is accurate, great data is actionable. We believe ours is very actionable because connected back to we're rooted in student evidence. That's what drives the data. And next slide, please. So last but not least, if you just keep in mind around our predictive insights, you're getting the rolling 6-week window, as Pam showed, a comparison to the other data. We are in line. We believe we are more accurate because of that rolling window. And when you, what gets measured gets valued. When we're consistently measuring student outcomes, communicating it effectively to educators, that's what drives the difference. So thank you for taking a couple minutes of listening to a quick plug about Dreambox. We'll kick it back over to answer some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dave. Again, Pam, thank you for pulling back the curtain and letting us look at what's going on behind the scenes. It's definitely working for your district. We're so excited. I want to take the moment right now. We've got a lot of questions to answer, and I'm going to actually ask Amanda Bertram. She is a client experience manager that works directly with Carroll County. We want to treat you like family when you're with Dreambox, and this is one of our family members. She's going to kind of give some of those questions. And David, you might want to come back on because there's a few questions that might be targeted to you as well. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. And thanks, Pam. That was a wonderful presentation. All right, so let's get into some questions. So one of the first questions that popped into the chat was, what tools do your schools use to easily house data and to organize it to look for patterns?
That would be us. We use, we actually create all of our spreadsheets, and we analyze our data. We do use Eliminate, which has a wonderful component to help us analyze our common assessments. And we use STAR, which again has another great component to help us analyze our data there. And then we compile all of our data in spreadsheets.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question is regarding your extended learning time. So
Yes.
when exactly is that time, and does that make your day longer as a whole?
No, not really. We took away homeroom time, that those minutes that were spent in homeroom, and that is, you go directly into extended learning time. And we just kind of trim some here, and so our day's not really technically longer, but I don't think anybody give it up. I really don't. But we do have a 90-minute ELA, 90-minute math, and then we do 45 minutes of science and 45 minutes of social studies. And then they have a connection time as well as recess and lunch.
Great. And during that time, you mentioned phonics programs. What programs are you using there? Is that when you use Lexia?
Well, actually, we use two things. We do Saxon Phonics in K2, and then the students also use Lexia. So that's kind of a two-prong approach, that we use Saxon for the actual instruction of phonics, and Lexia kind of helps us do the practice and the learning as well. So, and then of course that phonics carries over into our guided reading, because we don't want it to be an isolated skill. It needs to be embedded in everything, but we do use Saxon and Lexia for that.
Awesome, thank you. Does your district use both STAR reading and STAR math for your benchmarking?
Yes, we use both.
Awesome. All right. All right, so this is another one kind of around all of your data as a whole. So how are you guys examining the triangulation of data between Dreambox, STAR, your common assessment, to then determine who your neediest students are? Do you have any kind of formula that you guys are using for that?
I don't know that we have a specific formula that we that I would share, but we do we bring all of that information together. So on our spreadsheets, and you only saw a glimpse of the spreadsheet, it's going to have STAR data, it's going to have common assessment data, and then we're going to have Dreambox data. And Dreambox, of course, you know, it's our second year, so we're just kind of really beginning to pull that and use that data. And so we're beginning to pull together. But basically, we come together and we begin looking at students, and we began to look to see who's moving, who's not moving. And it's based on us getting in there, hands-on in the data with the teachers, and we talk about it. We make lists. We say who's growing, who's not growing, and what we need to do to grow them. And by the way, when we're talking about growing, everyone kind of always assumes that it's on the lower end, that the children who are struggle the most are the kids who are not growing. But quite honestly, that's not always true. They may be growing, but they grow at a different rate. So we have to make sure that we support them and help them with that. But one thing we found when we first started doing all this data is that some of our highest kids are not growing. They're still high, they're going to make great scores, but are they truly growing? So then we had to have another approach. We had to think about, well, you know, we've got this group moving and our middle group's moving, but what are we doing to our high group? And so we had to focus on making sure that when we look at growth, we just, you know, we don't focus just in one area, but we look at all the kids.
Awesome, thank you. It's very thorough. So we just got another one that popped in, and it says, what program do you use to progress monitor students who are receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention?
It's a great question. And it depends upon the school. That's kind of a school-based thing on what they use. We do have the Georgia Numeracy Project in the state of Georgia, and so we use things from there. We have things from our local RESA. We do use Lexia and even Dreambox a little to progress monitor. Are they growing and that kind of stuff? So we use a variety of instruments that we pull things from, but pretty much some of that stuff is just great, you know, probes that we pull to use with children to see those skills and see if they're missing. So it depends on the school, depends on what intervention they need.
Absolutely. All right. I don't see any specific PAM questions at the moment. I think we got through most of them. There was a few questions just about the Dreambox predictive insights and how Dreambox is really understanding that. So if a student might not be completing all of their grade level standards, but they're listed on track. So we did answer that question in the chat, but I wasn't sure if Dave wanted to touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. Dreambox Predictive Insights, we view standards as end-of-year outcomes. And the purpose of the standards is for students to apply their knowledge in a similar but unfamiliar situation. So it is quite possible that a student may not have shown proficiency yet in Dreambox, but they're showing the underlying understandings, conceptual understandings around, let's say, for an example of multiplication. The idea of multiplication can be representative in a student applying partial products or doubling and halving or other strategies. And so when we view whether we think a student is going to be on track for the end of the year, it's mainly rooted in that data. And some students, as we know, depending on the implementation of the district, you know, Pam talked about some of the high kids may not be showing as much growth, right? Like that. They're still probably going to show up as on track for that 5th grade assessment because they are on track. It's possible to be on track and not show growth, which is very encouraging to hear Pam talk about. Like when they look at growth in students, it's age and grade agnostic, right? We're looking at students, where did they start and where did they end and what does that growth look like? Which is what makes teaching so darn challenging, right? Meeting the needs of all those students.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. All right, do we have any more questions in the chat that you guys want to ask Pam? We do have a few more minutes, so make sure to get them in if you guys have any.
I can say, based on some of your questions, we do use all of these programs that I talked about, Dreambox, STAR, Eliminate, but what it boils down to is we take all that information and we meet with the teachers, and it's us us working, the teachers working, and it goes back to the good old, writing it down and moving kids and writing down all this stuff. So I love all that we do, but I don't want a program that's going to spit out names and these are the only kids that we need to work with, because we want to see those kids' names and we want to see how each and individual kid is growing. So it is very much an individualized process with our children.
Yeah, and Pam, you just touched on something that we view ourselves, for those of you that have ever played Mario Brothers, right, like Super Mario World back in the day, we view ourselves as the flower, right? And we view educators and students as Mario. At Dreambox, we want to empower you all to throw fire, right? We want to empower you to do something that you weren't able to do before. So I think what you're touching on there is critically important, right? The heroes of the story are the teachers and the students and the thoughtful educators like Pam that are out there grinding it, right? Like, what a tremendously challenging last year, remote, COVID, all of the stress that was with that. So really enjoyed hearing your presentation today, Pam. It was very encouraging.
Well, we are Carroll County Schools, premier leaders, premier teachers, and premier schools.
Thank you, guys. Everyone has really stuck with us to the end. We've had so many questions. We tried to capture all of those and answer those individually. Of course, you can reach back out to us at Dreambox. And we just really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful Easter and go prank those you care about today. Take care.